Cheers, guys. Epix911, welcome to the Elitist Geek VR news for September 2nd on what is a quite obviously Gaming Friday, as evidenced by my bro, my friend in the background there, on the arcade cabinet, hammering on the buttons, possibly a bigger arcade addict than myself, completely oblivious to what we're talking about here. That's how you know it's Gaming Friday, and that's always a good thing. So let's get into it, guys. A couple of stories out of PAX West. First has to do with the Call of Duty franchise. So Infinity Ward has announced that there will be free virtual reality DLC for their latest installment, right, called Infinite Warfare. And it will be released, Infinite Warfare will be released on November 4th. So it's coming about 3 weeks after the virtual reality launch. But the DLC is the portion that's going to be free, right? And look, it's not the wait. I'm fine with that. And I appreciate free. I really do. We've had that conversation. Yes, free is good. But I can't help but kind of feeling a little pessimistic over the last 4 months. Kind of glass half empty that every single free thing seems to be in the 3 to 8 minute range. And yeah, obviously that begs the question, who cares? It's free. I get that. All I'm saying is the preconceived idea that I have about anything that gets announced as free for VR is that it's freaking short, right? So hopefully this is going to be at least an hour and not 3 to 5 minutes, right? Just some length of time to be able to enjoy it, right? The other good news is the fact they're doing it at all. So if this ends up being really successful on the Sony PlayStation, we have another AAA dev working on VR-related stuff. So I hope a lot of people check out this free DLC that have the PlayStation VR. And quite frankly, I hope it kicks ass. So we will find out November 4th. Next news article has to do with Google's Daydream HMD. Now, we've kind of known the name Daydream. We've kind of heard some rumors on specs. Now we have an official name. It is the Daydream View, is what it's supposed to be referred to as. And it is going to be released October 4th. So we are a week and a bit ahead of the PlayStation VR launch date, right, which is October 13th. And it's being built on top of the Android OS. So looking forward to seeing what that product brings to the table. We will find out. Next company in the next news piece is called Bitmovin. And Bitmovin is a company that specializes in media streaming, things that are internet-related media content. What they've managed to do is raise $10.3 million to improve 360-degree video resolution and clarity on our HMDs. And, definitely as having watched both live-streamed VR 360 content, stuff like out of the Olympics, that's a good thing, because one of the things that they're saying, the reason for this is rarely does the 360 that we watch through our HMD compare to the resolution that this video was actually captured at, right? And I think I talked about an experience that I had last week with the Paul McCartney content on Oculus, which was great sound-wise, right? But in terms of the visual experience, there was a lot of blurriness, a lot of dithering, there was a lot of pixelation, stretching. A lot seemed to be lost in the final product that probably wasn't there in terms of how it was natively captured, right? Now, granted, this is all stuff that's going to happen. It's going to get better, right? Just like we're always going to have instances where we continue to see bloated code, right? Something like a Microsoft OS. That's technology. That's progress. That's the reality of it. So when I see them actively investing money in addressing it, I say that's a decent, good thing to have happen, because I maintain, I would really enjoy 360-degree content if, a couple of things, if it had the ability to move around, like some of the other technologies that I've mentioned companies are working on, right? It can be limited, that's fine. Look around, sway, take a step in any direction, and come back to center point. But be able to pull that off realistically, right? Second, clarity, resolution, having it look good. That's what I want to see. That's going to make the experience that much more powerful compared to blurry, pixelated mess on your screen, right? It's cool, but it could be so much better. That's all I'm saying. Next news piece has to do with a device that they're calling the Light VR. Or not a device, sorry, software. It's desktop software they're calling Light VR, and it's from a company called MyDream. And this is also out of PAX West. This was announced. Anytime a company does a matrix where they compare their product versus others, man, it sounds like I'm being really negative tonight. I'm not. It's just I'm a realist when it comes to some of this stuff because I deal with it in the tech world almost on a daily basis, right? But the tendency where I was going with that is they tend to, and that's just marketing 101, put their product in the best light by picking the categories in the matrix that they excel at, right? Finding ones that their competitors are deficient in. And you could take this Light VR as a perfect example, find same style of matrix on the competitor sites, and the terminology changes, the check marks and X's totally change. So yeah, I always take that with a grain of salt. I'm sure most of you do too. But with that said, the specs on this thing look pretty decent, right? In terms of what they're trying to accomplish. And essentially what it is, it's going to be a competitor to like virtual desktop, big screen, envelope VR. You're going to get virtual reality space, 360-degree space, where you can basically put windows, put web pages, use 3D props to accomplish that. So you're basically building up kind of almost that cyberpunk style virtual reality space, right? That we've seen movies about the last few decades, we've read books on. So I like where they're going with that. Ultimately, are they going to pull it off to where people use it? That's going to be the big question. For me personally, I've tried a couple of these virtual desktop, big screen. It's not at that point yet for me personally. I still prefer my, 3D on a monitor as opposed to on the HMD. But I am seeing improvements even with those products. There's updates, stuff is getting better. But for me personally, and probably a lot of you, we're not at that point yet, right? But we'll get there because eventually that's what I want to be doing. The matrix style, sliding windows around and using space around me as a desktop. I think that would be brilliant. Just not quite there yet for me. Company called Alcatel is releasing a VR headset that doesn't use a phone. And what I like about this article in theverge.com is the author of the article ends it with but why? Why aren't you using a phone? So basically what they have is they've embedded the processor and RAM and storage inside the device, but they are still kind of targeting the Daydream Google VR market as opposed to Vive Rift, obviously, where stuff is happening computer side, right? On the Gear VR, we know it's happening on the phone. Well, with them, they've got this built-in 8-core processor, 3 gigs of RAM, and 32 gigs of storage. The lenses, the resolution of the screen, is basically 1080 by 1020 per eye. So that's less than the Rift or Vive. It's not bad, but it's less than the Rift or Vive, right? And ultimately, right now, they say they're going to have games, but we know how launches go. We're being realistic about that. We were with the Vive. We were with the Rift. We're going into the Sony launch being optimistic, but also being realistic that we're probably going to be disappointed with some of the stuff. That's just going to be the reality, right? Launches always get hyped because that's the whole point of marketing. When we actually cross that bridge, what we're left with Well, that's when we unwrap those presents on Christmas morning, right? Find out where the truth is. So hopefully it can hang with the others in the market. I'm not convinced and a little skeptical, but hey, the more that are willing, it's just when I hear 50 launch titles, immediately my radar goes up and I kind of want to question it, right? I just naturally get skeptical about those kind of claims. What are the 50 games going to be? Are they going to be 50 quality indie titles with a smattering of AAA publishing effort? Or are they going to be, Pong variants or Me Play variants, right? Are we going to have 50 versions of the same type of game? That remains to be seen because they haven't done a lot of showing what the launch titles actually look like, right? It's like that footage of the Chinese HMD with the 210-degree field of view. It was very clear in the video that it wasn't very clear what was actually running that game footage, right? It looked to me, my guess would have been a dev station and not the HMD at all, but I could be wrong. That's just the perception, right? So let's get some more info on that, get some more ideas on what this Alcatel device is capable of, and then we can judge it a bit better, at least against the competitors, right? Or evaluate it. I wouldn't say judging. Judging sounds so final, but evaluating it against the other solutions. Now, this last news story is one that I had a great conversation with my wife and daughter on. My daughter's kind of taken some university courses this semester. She starts so in this month of September, and she asked me, she says, Dad, I want a laptop where I can do some gaming, but obviously school work too. Well, we took a look. I showed her the Razer Blade, and there was a good article on it, Laptop Magazine today, talking about it. Now, it doesn't come without issues. Definitely issues reported with this, but I like the concept. The concept is pretty sound, right? Let's get into that, and then let's quickly talk about the pitfalls and the negatives of that. So here are the positives. The positives are you have a non-Intel, it's an NVIDIA 970 mobility-based laptop. At its core, that's what it is. It's not particularly thin, but it's not particularly fat. It doesn't look anywhere near a desktop replacement, which is good. What it uses is a Thunderbolt 3 cable to interface with what essentially amounts to an external video card, right? And initially they're going to launch the laptop, then what they call the Core, right? So they've got the Razer Blade, which is the laptop, and then the Razer Core, which is where you mount your external video card. So the idea with this is, look, when I take this thing on the road to travel, yeah, I'm using it more as a casual laptop, as laptops are intended to be used, right? Maybe for business, maybe for school, taking it on a vacation, we can edit pictures, YouTube videos, whatever, right? But when I get home, when I plug this thing in, it's a gaming station. And I like the fact that it's modular. You're not locked into one specific card. The article that I looked at yesterday night, the one that I actually showed my daughter, had a 1080 in the external. Even though it wasn't officially on the list, Linus Tech Tips, that's the video I saw. It just came to me. Even though it didn't have, it wasn't one of the cards that was considered compatible, it worked. And really, you would hope that's the case for most cards going forward. But with it being PCI Express, capable, yeah, it's not future-proof. Nothing's really future-proof, right? But it should be able to last you 3 to 5 years, right? If as a gaming station, as a laptop, as all of those things. So definitely some bugs to iron out, right? And you could ask yourself, look, okay, wow, this makes a great virtual reality, and it does. First of all, the thing's expensive, right? If you think you're paying over $2,000 for all of that, you'd be right. It's going to be well over $2,000. You get a lot of ability, but how different is that really than a desktop with a monitor and just having a cheap laptop alongside it, right? Well, that depends on the eventual price point of this thing. Once, they officially launch the Core, then you got to do the cost-benefit analysis, right? Compare that with a gaming station and a laptop. Is it still worth it? But with that said, the concept's cool. It's sound. I like it. And curious to see how it unfolds. All right, guys, it is time. Probably get a couple of videos in over the next few days. But with this one now over, cheers as always, guys, and definitely catch you on the flip side.
Oh yeah, it's gaming time. Get over here.